Representative Escobar, the gentlewoman from Texas, for her 5 minutes.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. I really appreciate the opportunity to wave on to the committee today, and thank you for hosting this very important hearing. I want to thank all of our panelists for being here. I serve in Congress representing the U.S.-Mexico border community of El Paso, Texas. I am a lifelong El Pasoan, a third-generation proud border resident, and I am so proud to uplift the voice of my community, which has always engaged with migrants in the spirit of goodwill, welcoming the stranger, really embracing true American values. You know, our Republican colleagues can't have it both ways. Just weeks ago, they decried President Biden as not doing anything on the border. And then when he lifts Title 42, claiming what he was doing was working, so let's keep doing what he was doing. The fact of the matter is migration patterns have been changing, and we started seeing that change 10 years ago, not during the Biden administration, not during the Trump administration, but before that. And Congress and administration after administration really has failed to act. I'm proud to be part of House Democrats who've brought forward comprehensive immigration reform, but we get stymied at every turn by Republicans who choose to obstruct instead of work towards solutions. The truth is, this is complicated. It's not easy. There's no one more who wants to see security and dignity than those of us who live on the U.S.-Mexico border. But addressing migration at the border, and only at the border, really is a signal of failure. And I wish we could all recognize that failure and the opportunity. We have had a test case during the entirety of the Trump administration and 1 year into the Biden administration. Do walls stop migration? Does Title 42 stop migration? We've tried that. And for colleagues of mine who want to stop migration, I hope that the test case has proven up what works and what doesn't work. Mr. Reichlin-Melnick, I have a series of questions for you. I'm going to try to get through as many of them, so if we can be succinct. First, my colleagues talk about the number of encounters at the border, and the media, CBP, have reported these numbers. Those numbers, are they representative of individuals arriving at the border, or what do encounters mean? Succinctly, if you could tell us.
An encounter is an arrest of an individual by Customs and Border Protection. So importantly, the same person can be arrested multiple times. In my opening statement, I talked about one person arrested 30 times and expelled every time under Title 42. That was 30 encounters. We actually know it hasn't been 2.5 million people since the start of fiscal year 21. Despite 2.5 million encounters, there's been 820,000 repeat encounters. So it's actually about 1.7 million. And in addition, border crossings are actually lower than they were 20 years ago.
And I'm going to interrupt you. That takes me to my next question. So the sheriff mentioned this is the worst he's ever seen. And again, mind you, with walls and with Title 42, it's the, quote, worst he's ever seen. How do the numbers of encounters, you were about to get into that, what we've seen in the last year, how does that compare over time?
Yeah, so 20 years ago, people weren't coming through Cochise County. They were coming through the Tucson sector, which is also included in that, but they were coming a little bit further over west, and primarily in California as well. But also, we had far fewer Border Patrol agents and far less surveillance at the border. So in fiscal year 2000, when there were 1.7 million encounters, CBP and DHS estimates that there were an additional 2 million undetected unlawful entries. That's not the case today.
Perfect, thank you. Very quickly, when members say people need to get in line or do it the right way, yes or no, has Congress created a line or a right way?
For almost every migrant who comes to the border, the right way is to cross the border and seek asylum, because seeking asylum is legal. There is no other pathway.
When was the last time Congress updated immigration law?
1996, but that was basically the last time. So it's been almost 25 years.
Thank you. I'd like to just talk a little bit about, in my remaining few seconds, securing the border and the question around whether the border has been secured. For over a decade, Republicans have told Democrats, if you will just secure the border, we'll give you comprehensive immigration reform. Hundreds of millions of dollars later into border security, there's been no movement on comprehensive immigration reform. And the more that we shrink legal avenues, which is what's happened, the more that we should anticipate that we will see more irregular crossings. So I invite Congress to work on real solutions. Madam Chair, I yield back.
Thank you. I want to thank our panelists. I want to thank all the members for questions. I think this is a very important hearing. I think it's timely. Title 42, as I mentioned, is a tool of the CDC, the Centers for Disease Control, and it was used as a public health declaration. There's been a lot of talk about the rule of law, and frankly, the rule of law is that you can come to a port and you can apply for asylum, and we're not following that rule of law. And so there is one agreement where the rule of law is not being followed. Our frustration on our side is that because the rule of law is not being followed, immigrants can't come to a port of entry and seek asylum, which is legal in the United States. So that's been my frustration as I kind of hear. And then we talked about border security. As we all know, as members of Homeland Security, we've been to multiple briefings, and we know the largest terror threat is from not the southern border, it's the northern border. So this is where I think, and maybe we need to have a conversation about that, but this is why I think it's helpful for us to have the hearing, and I appreciate the participation on both sides today. And again, to all our witnesses, I want to thank you all for your valuable testimony, and you, Sheriff, thanks for joining us virtually as well. Without objection, I submit statements for the record from Kids in Need of Defense, First Focus on Children, the Latin American Working Group, the Friends Committee on National Legislation, and the Young Center for Immigrant Children's Rights. The members of the subcommittee may have additional questions for the witnesses, and we ask that you respond expeditiously in writing. The chair reminds members that the committee record remains open for 10 business days, and without objection, the subcommittee stands adjourned.